This episode is brought to you by 180 Markets, where it is our goal to bring every individual, fund manager, family office, or any qualified investor access to Australian Stock Exchange capital raises. If you are ever interested in how to access ASX capital raises in a super simple way, 180 Markets is for you. The sign-up process is easy. You just upload your ID, proof of your investor status, and your current brokerage account information. The settlement of shares goes right into your existing account, and you can access our very next capital raise. If you're interested in free, easy access to thousands of ASX capital raises, including placements, IPOs, reverse takeovers, and more, check out 180markets.com.au. Hello, everybody. Welcome again. Another edition of 18 Minutes with 180 Markets. Gold, friends, obviously it's in demand. And in Australia here, there are so many gold companies out there. But with us today, we have a repeat guest, Predictive Discovery, and its managing director, Paul Roberts. And within the gold sector, I can't think of many companies that are as exciting for what they have done and what they can do as as Predictive. And Paul's going to talk to us all about it and say what has transpired over the last 15 months, because this company is certainly not what it was before, and what we could look forward to in the future as well. And with that introduction, Paul, welcome back to 18 Minutes with 180 Markets.
Thank you, Greg. Pleasure to be here.
Hey, Paul, a lot of people or a lot of investors have not caught our first interview, which, by the way, everybody should. But can you just spend a couple minutes going over your background, please?
All right. Well, I'm a geologist. I've been in the business for a long time. I suppose the most important part of my history relative to this enterprise we have now is the start of Predictive. So I'm the founding CEO and managing director of Predictive. The company came into existence in 2007. We started working and looking at opportunities in West Africa in 2008. We started working in earnest in 2010. We listed in late 2010. So I've been with it from the beginning. I'm an exploration geologist. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time in West Africa. I have also spent most of my career in Australia and worked in South America. So I've worked internationally, but obviously a large focus has been in West Africa, which has brought us to this discovery.
Right. Fantastic. And for you, as I mentioned in the introduction, a lot has happened within the business in the last 15 months of Predictive. Can you just give a little bit of a brief history there? What's happened?
Yes, it's been completely transformational. So 15 months ago, we had a market capitalization of a few million dollars. We were, and we had been in that prior decade, effectively a greenfields explorer, using a particular approach, which we still use, which we call Predictor, looking for opportunities, making discoveries in West Africa, in Burkina Faso, in Cote d'Ivoire. So we've got a good success record, but not a success record of something that looks like a big discovery until this thing came along. So back there 15 months ago, we announced the first drill holes in the Northeast Bangkan deposit, 46 meters or 6.6 grams a ton, set the market on fire. Share price went through the roof. Currently we're sitting on a market capitalization close to $120 million. It's an extraordinary journey. And that's really because in that period, we've kept on drilling, we've kept on finding, we're looking at a big gold deposit. And the markets increasingly recognize that. And then, of course, we've also seen a change in the character of our share registry. So we've got significant, well-known institutional investors on board. And when you consider that this is only in the space of 15 months from essentially no asset that an institution would look at, that's an institution, that's an achievement all by itself. And names like Van Eck and Franklin Templeton don't come along unless you've found something pretty interesting.
Absolutely. And I suppose, talking about Bangkan, can you that is the major project, the major focus, obviously the transformational asset, if you will, for Predictive. Can you just, in a couple of minutes, just discuss what is it that is so exciting in the project?
Right. Well, the thing about Bangkan, firstly, right now we've got two discoveries that we're looking at, and we're going to bring both of those discoveries through to maiden resource estimate. The first discovery, Northeast Bangkan, it's important to recognize we have 358 square kilometers of ground. and none of it had seen a drill hole before we turned up. And this is despite the fact that within in a 40-kilometre radius, there are two significant known gold deposits. This area had never been touched. So when we started drilling, yeah, some little superficial workings up on northeast Bangkan. I don't think many people had any expectation of what we would find. And what we found is a gold deposit up at northeast Bangkan. We've got something that in the oxide layer is over 1 kilometre long. And then there's a central zone, which is maybe 500 metres long, where we have a very wide zone of mineralisation extending down to depth, which looks as if it's going to generate a very large open pit. We believe, based on the work we've done so far, that the mineralisation that we're seeing will be mineable down to, in an open pit, down to about 300 metres. And there are a couple of important reasons for that. The first is that the mineralisation is very broad. The actual mineralised envelope is a couple of 100 metres wide. And so we actually, at surface, we have in the centre of the deposit an oxide gold deposit, which is a couple of 100 metres wide, going down to a depth of maybe 60 metres. So that's fantastic. When you go down to the fresh rock, we're getting payable widths, that aggregate payable widths in this zone in the centre of the deposit of the order of 100 metres, tapering to maybe 50 metres as we go to the south, dropping a little bit of grade as we go to the north. So big broad zone. The other great thing about it is that it dips shallowly. So it dips at, overall about 45 degrees. That is the angle of a pit wall. And that's really important because what it means is that on the eastern side of the deposit, the pit wall will just follow the base of the mineralisation down. And the only place that you've got to mine waste rock then is on the western side of the deposit, what we call the hanging wall. And that means that stripping ratio, even down to a depth of 300 metres, with these really very great widths that we're seeing in the core of the deposit, is going to be relatively low. Beyond that, gold grade distribution is generally quite even. And so what that means is that it will, what you see is likely to what you're going to get. So continuity is important. And when you have high continuity, it means that the consistency of grade that you have in the ground is delivered to the mill. If you have inconsistent grade distribution, you get a different story and you get lower grade. So what we see is what we're going to get. Most of what we've drilled will be in the pit, and it's looking like a big pit, as I say, about 300 metres wide, 300 metres deep by the looks of it, and likely to be 700-800 metres wide. Big hole in the ground.
Wow. So this is obviously a massive piece of land. And can you just talk about how much drilling you've done so far? I think is this right, 70,000 meters, but how much more there is to go?
Right, well, we're a bit further along than 70,000 metres because that was in our presentation, and we've been drilling away with up to 3 big rigs over the last few months. So, it would be north of 80,000 metres now. We've recently completed a large capital raising. We've got some of the money is going to come in next month because we have an EGM to go through, but in aggregate, before cost, $26.5 million. That is funding a 110,000 metre drilling program. A lot of that will be, it's a mix. It's reverse circulation, diamond drilling, some air core, quite a lot of power auger. And what that's going to do is a couple of things. Firstly, of course, it's going to allow us to keep filling out these deposits that we already know, to infill them so that we can push them up to the indicated category under the JORC code, which means we can publish ore reserves on them as well, and to look for more. So looking for more is really important. We've found a large gold deposit just 3 kilometres away. We've got another gold deposit, which is Bangkan Creek. We just put out some great results on that. Shallow, 36 metres of 3.1, 45 metres of 2 grams. Wonderful results, very close to surface. But there's a lot of potential to find more in that 358 square kilometres, particularly because it's up and down strike. So the strike of the structure or the structures which are controlling this of the order of 35 kilometres, most of it untested. We've been drilling a little bit with the auger. Best auger results so far up in the north, 17 kilometres away, 12 metres of 10 grams. There's clearly more to be found. So a lot to do and a lot of drilling in front of us, yes.
Absolutely, and that's what also makes predictive, so exciting. You mentioned before, just a couple minutes ago, about a JORC resource. Can you just talk about what an investor should be looking for, like, let's just say over the next 6 months?
Right. Okay. So just in the immediate short term, what we've got, of course, we're still doing resource drilling. We're resource drilling on Bangkan Creek. We expect to draw the line on that in early July. And at that point, and obviously we'll have to wait a few weeks to get results. Once we get those results in and we've assessed them and made sure the data's beautiful and clean, then we'll press the button and we'll go into a maiden resource estimate on those two deposits. So we have been telling the market and are expecting to complete that in the September quarter. Might be at the latter end of the September quarter, but within the September quarter, we're expecting to get the maiden resource estimate out. In parallel with that, we've got about 305 kilos of samples of drill core that we've taken for the deposit. They're in a metallurgical laboratory in Perth right now. We're carrying out metallurgical test work. It's going to be a pretty solid program of met test work. It's not just a couple of weeks, but over the next few months, we'll be doing that work. We'll be announcing that work too, and it's in our intention to get those met results out and a picture of how the deposit is going to be processed before we put out the maiden resource estimate. So those are two really critical milestones. At the same time, we'll continue drilling. So it is the rainy season coming up now. It does limit our access to some areas. And while we can, we keep the power auger going, identifying more prospects, and then where we've got access, we'll take a rig in there. We've got essentially a multi-purpose rig engaged all through the rainy season. So we've got at least one rig, likely working 24 hours a day, a double shift in the area. Some of it on Northeast Bangkan because that's an all-weather site. Some of it on the other areas if we've got all-weather access. But we're going to keep on pumping the news out, and of course we'll have more drilling capability brought to bear in the dry season starting in October. So you'll see an acceleration of drilling, a lot of news flow to come. So by the time we get to the end of the year, certainly we will have done a lot more drilling. We could well be at the point, it might take a few more months, to deliver a second a resource update. Certainly we'll be drilling towards that goal on the known deposits. And we're very hopeful that we'll have found some other things that we'll be starting to drill to look to add them into potential resource update as well. So very exciting times to come in the next 6 months.
Yeah, a huge amount of news flow, as you said. And also, you mentioned Bangkan into the different areas, and I like to think about it almost like as a project with sub-projects as well, meaning that there's so many different areas to hit. Can you just talk a little bit about, and maybe keep it at somewhat of a high level of just the overall makeup of the project?
So on the Bangkan project itself, we are looking, I think, clearly at this stage that Northeast Bangkan will be the core mine, and then there will be satellites. And the first satellite, of course, is Bangkan Creek, only 3 kilometres away. And certainly there'll be other satellites, or I say certainly, we believe that there will be other satellites up and down the line in these areas where we're already getting gold hits. And so what it will be a central pit. It's really, really important for economics and mine design to have a core project and deposit, which will provide the bulk of the feed. And we'll be looking at progressively developing satellite operations to feed into that mill as well. So that's kind of what's going on there. And that, if you like, is sub-projects, those satellite operations. Beyond that, of course, we have quite a large ground position in Guinea. We keep on looking for other opportunities, and we expect that there will be 1 or 2 other opportunities within Guinea. But the one that's most prominent right now is Kundian. So at Kundian, we've been doing early work. We've done some power auger drilling. Best intercept out of the power auger drilling was 6 meters of 32 grams, and not so far away, 6 meters of 10 grams. Really quite stellar hits. So there's a real possibility. And of course, the other thing about Kundian is it's only 7 kilometers north of a large gold deposit that's being developed as a mine. So it's in a very gold-rich area, very, very underexplored. Great opportunity to find more, to find another standalone operation. And certainly we're not, while we're very focused on Bangkan, we've got the capability and the will, and certainly the interest to see if we can find more deposits in Guinea, because we're in very good position to capitalise on the success of Bangkan.
Absolutely. And obviously, given your experience as well, it certainly helps the situation. Hey, Paul, what would be, in your mind, for the next 12 months, what would be your definition of success?
Well, certainly, I think that demonstrating the economic potential of the Bangkan project. It may be an initial view, because we believe that over time the resource potential and indeed the resources are going to grow. So we're looking at a maiden resource. The maiden resource estimate in the initial stages will probably be largely inferred. Very good continuity, but probably largely inferred. Converting that into resources, to indicated resources, allows us to calculate reserves, allows us to put out a publishable scoping study. I would expect in that time frame there will be a scoping study out, and that'll be very clear to the market what an initial view of the economics of the thing look like, and we believe it's going to look very good. And beyond that, there will be other discoveries coming down the pipe that the market will also see, and a recognition that we're going to make this bigger before we start mining.
Absolutely. Hey, Paul, we have to keep these interviews short and sharp, but before we go, do you have any closing comments for the audience?
Yes, well, I mean, obviously, we invite investors to join our register. We think that we have a very exciting story. And I think that the reason for thinking this is that these kinds of deposits globally don't come along very often. So certainly, of course, there are a lot of discoveries, a discovery with scale. But the most important thing about this is, beyond the scale, is this thickness, this continuity. This is a bulk mining operation in which it's the kind of deposit that's tailor-made for large gold mining companies. And it's not bitty. It's not difficult to optimize every aspect of the operation, because the deposit itself is very forgiving, very broad zones. These zones in this pit, when it's being mined, they'll be at times 80 meters horizontal width. And as a person who's spent time in geology, standing in a pit where you've got an ore zone where you can barely see the tapes, they're so bloody far away, this doesn't happen very often. So, I mean, this is a really exciting thing, a really exciting opportunity. And I think it's going to be a very significant addition to gold mining in Guinea, and indeed in West Africa.
Thank you, Paul. It's super exciting, and look forward to sharing the journey with you.
Thank you, Greg. Nice to talk again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching another presentation by 180 Markets. Don't forget, if you want access to thousands of ASX capital raises, head on over to 180markets.com.au, sign up, and get on board for our very next capital raise. Thanks for watching.